You're in escrow on a house. The inspection reveals that there are items that need to be fixed or repaired or maintained. What repairs does the seller have to make? We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the weekly market update and a new cool app that I found all today on the Brian Hirsch Show. Well, good afternoon, everybody, on this Monday, last day of July 2023. It seems like just yesterday that we were in January and we just started this podcast, but here we are over halfway through the year. And I do hope that this broadcast finds you well, or this podcast, if you're listening on the podcast, finds you well wherever you may be. Today, we're going to talk about something that comes up a lot in our industry. When I'm out, showing homes to buyers, and we're looking at properties, and many of them have things wrong with them. And unless it's a brand new house, and even brand new homes have things wrong with them, but unless it's a house that has been absolutely meticulously maintained by its owner, which we do find those as well, but most of the time, the vast majority of the time, the home needs some kind of attention. Most of the time, it's small things, cosmetic things. It could be some flaking, peeling paint. It could be, some flooring that's damaged. It could be a countertop that's cracked. And sometimes it could be major issues like a roof that needs, major repair, appliances that need to be replaced, an HVAC unit that needs to be replaced, and anything in between. And oftentimes what the buyers will ask me is, now the sellers have to fix this, right? The sellers have to fix this, right? And that triggers a conversation that I have with every client, for that matter, both buyers and sellers, in walking them through this process on repairs. So what you need to know is that the starting place with the home is that the house is sold as is. And I usually make the buyers repeat that. Say that with me. The home is sold what? As is. That's the communicator in me, right? I get the audience going. The home is sold what? As is. We underscore that to help them get their mind wrapped around it. And oftentimes buyers don't like to hear that, but the truth is that the house is sold as is. However, the contract here in the state of California, and I've looked at contracts from other states that have similar provisions in them. Here in the state of California, that residential purchase agreement includes in it what we call contingencies. Now, the word contingency can be supplanted with the word if as it relates to a real estate contract. So there's 3 of them, all of them in favor of the buyer, where the buyer could back out. And one of those contingencies is an inspection. Another contingency is an appraisal. So let's say, for example, the subject property is listed for sale and we're under contract for $400,000. Let's just use that as a scenario. The buyer would convey to the seller, I will purchase this property for $400,000 if, right, contingent on it appraising for $400,000. And if it doesn't, we have to renegotiate. And we'll bring an appraiser on sometime to talk about appraisals and how that works. And then we're going to order a home inspection. So we're going to have a contractor inspect the house, and those home inspections usually last about 2 hours because the inspector is going to go through, turn on every light switch. They're going to check every appliance. They're going to flush every toilet. They're going to turn on every faucet. They're going to test air conditioning and heating vents to make sure they're at the right temperature. They're going to take a look at the roof. They're going to do all of these things, and they're going to generate a report. Now, before I move any further, it's important for you to know that the contingency period is 17 days. So we have 17 days to get the property appraised and to get the property inspected. And as a result of those two reports, we're going to have a list of things. And those inspectors, they usually find stuff that need to be fixed, repaired, replaced, so on and so forth. The buyer then has the right to further negotiate, further with the seller, to either have items fixed or get a credit or whatever the case may be. Now, I told you at the onset that the house is sold as is. That's the beginning place. But now the buyer has the right to request, underscore the word request, repairs based on the reports. Now, if it's on the appraisal report, it could be a lender required repair. So the appraiser said, yes, we're going to give you, again, this is our example at $400,000. The property is valued at $400,000. And then sometimes there'll be conditions, particularly if it's a government backed loan, like an FHA loan or a VA loan. There'll be some guidelines. What we see most oftenly with those FHA appraisals that come back is the flaking and peeling paint on the fascia. That I would say is the number one thing. Sometimes if the roof is in disrepair, they'll make a condition that there is a roof certification. Another thing we see commonly is the flooring. You know, if it's not in livable condition, they'll require these items to be repaired before the bank will lend on it. Now, watch this. With the neither the home inspector nor the appraiser, remember we have two inspections, the appraiser and the home inspector, neither of them necessitate who pays for the repair. The appraiser may require a repair, but that doesn't mean the seller has to fix it. The buyer could pay for the repair. Same with the home inspection report. The inspector doesn't say who pays for the repair. The inspector is only giving a report on what he recommends be repaired. And that report belongs to the buyer. So one of the things that comes up in our business is they think, well, shouldn't the agent for the seller be there at the inspection to prevent the inspector from being biased in the inspection? All of that is a misunderstanding of what the purpose of the inspection is. The inspection belongs to the buyer. Same with the appraisal. The appraisal belongs to the buyer. The buyer is the one paying for it. In a way, the inspector is biased, if you want to think of it that way, toward the buyer. Really, all they're doing is their job, right? They're just generating the report and including it. But there is no necessity for the buyer or the seller to fix anything. So our next step is for the buyer to submit a request. Again, underscore the word request for repairs. And we're further negotiating with the seller even after agreeing to terms on the purchase price. And the seller can respond by saying, yes, we will fix everything. Or they could say, we'll fix some things, but not others. We'll fix nothing. Or in some cases, maybe they'll offer a credit in lieu of repairs. And if the buyer accepts those terms, we can remove that contingency and move forward. But if the buyer is not satisfied with the negotiations on repairs, the buyer can cancel the contract and get their deposit back. So the answer to the question, does the seller have to fix anything, or what repairs does the seller have to fix? The answer is the seller does not have to fix anything. But guess what? The buyer does not have to purchase the house. And so if you have a situation where both the buyer and the seller are motivated to get the transaction closed, I would say the vast majority of the time we're able to successfully negotiate the repairs. And most of the time, guys, it's a couple of $1,000. So when you're talking about $400,000 house, repairs, somewhere between $1,000 or $2,000 should not be a deal breaker. And what you should be, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if you're watching this, what you should be looking for in those inspection reports are the deal breakers. You're saying, okay, if this is not fixed, then I don't want to buy the house. Now, every buyer wants the seller to fix everything on the report, and every seller doesn't want to have to fix anything on the report. This is part of the art of negotiations, right? We negotiate back and forth. And you're not going to get everything you want, but you might get, some of what you want or half of what you want. And as we kind of close out this segment on what repairs the seller has to do, the answer to that question, of course, is none. But it's important, I think, to make note of the fact that this is all market driven. So if you are in a loose market, meaning that there are more sellers on the market competing with each other for the buyers to come buy their house, in those market conditions, you're more apt to get a seller to give you a great deal on the house. Maybe they'll reduce the price. Maybe they're going to give you a credit towards your closing costs. Maybe they're going to be super motivated to fix everything on the report because they need to sell their house. And what they don't want is to lose the buyer to go down the road to another seller who would give them a better deal on the house. So they're super motivated. And then sometimes it's the other way around, where it's a tight market and there's a lot more buyers than there are sellers. And in that situation, the buyers oftentimes will say, it's fine, we'll pay for all the repairs, we'll get everything done. Even if the appraiser requires a repair, we'll get our painter over there to paint it before we close escrow. We'll take responsibility for everything because we don't want to lose this house. The last thing that we want is for the seller to cut bait with us because we refused to remove our contingency. And there's 3 other buyers waiting in line to take responsibility for everything that's wrong with the house. And so where we are today in today's market, it's a tight market, but there's not as much demand as there was when the interest rates were at 3 and 4%. So in today's market, in most cases, the seller is giving a little bit of concession, with closing costs, at least this is anecdotal from my business. Most of the time there's a little bit of credit coming from the seller to the buyer in the way of 1 to 2%. And most of the time the seller is willing to perform, at least some of the repairs, and the ones that are most important. That would be lender required repairs or a failed septic or, something, a major component or something like that. So I hope this helps you get your head wrapped around it all. Does the seller have to fix anything? No, but the buyer does not have to buy the house. All right, let's move on to this week's market update. Before we do that, we do ask you to like, share, and subscribe to this weekly show, to the YouTube channel. Share it on social media. Share the podcast. We are desirous of just helping people, getting the information out, and adding value to your life. All right, let's look at this week's market update. This is for July 31st, 2023. In the last 30 days, we sold 395 homes. That's a pretty good absorption rate. Absorption rate meaning the rate at which the market is absorbing homes on the market. Now, again, what we have historically done, we've traded somewhere between 5,000 to 6,000 properties annually in our market over the last 10 years or so. So 395 is still a little lower than what we would normally see in the summer season, but it's a pretty decent absorption rate given our current market conditions. The median sale price for those homes down just a little bit from last week at $415,000 year over year. 1 year ago, same period, that would be end of fourth week of June through the fourth week of July, we sold 466 homes at a median sale price of $425,000. So we are down about 15% in the number of homes sold year over year, and down just a little over 2% on the median sale price. In escrow, we have 613 homes in escrow. My good friend Mike Arias, who was on last week, to give you perspective on the number of homes in escrow and the number of homes actively listed. Historically, a supply of homes that leads to kind of a healthy market of equilibrium in the marketplace would be about 6 months of supply, or at a bare minimum, you would like to see 3 months of supply. That would still be a tight market, or even 4 months of supply. Well, if our absorption rate is right around 400 homes, last 30 days sold 395, what would be kind of a normal market would be somewhere around 1,600 homes. Well, we only have 725 homes listed for sale, and we have 613 homes in escrow. I started adding this week to this report what the median sale price of the homes in escrow and the homes that are actively listed. In escrow, the median sale price is $425,000. So that gives you a little bit of an indication of where the market's going. Going to go up a little bit, assuming that the majority of those homes close for what they're listed for. So it's a possibility that some of them are going to close for a lower amount because they negotiated a lower price, or because the appraisal didn't come in, or whatever. On active listings, the 725 homes that are actively listed, the median sale price of those is $460,000. So you can see the median sale price on active listings is a lot higher. The reason is it takes longer to sell those higher priced homes, bringing that median price up a little bit. All right, current interest rate. This comes courtesy of Pride Stromset over at Vintage Lending. Not much change this week for a standard FHA loan with a 660 mid FICO score. This is a 30-year fixed at 6.25 to 6.375%. All right, and that is this week's market update. All right, let's get to the segment of the show we call Check This Out. This is kind of cool. I found a really neat app that you can get either from the Google Play Store, or if you're an Apple user, you can get from the Apple Store. It's called Elevate Brain Training Games. And this is a pretty cool, it's a fun little app that offers exercises to help you sharpen your brain and your cognitive skills, and things like reading and math and name memory, facial recognition, these kinds of things. And obviously, the sharper you are intellectually, and the sharper you are with your thinking skills and your ability to reason and solve problems, the more successful you're going to be in life. So check it out. Elevate Brain Training Games. And that does it for this week's edition of the Brian Hirsch Show. I hope that it helped you today in understanding, the repairs and contingencies and so on and so forth. I sure appreciate all of you joining us every week on this show, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, we are serving your dreams. Have a great week, everybody.